what's happening with the proposal to switch to change CPI?
Okay, again, I don't think everyone is familiar with that, but I mentioned earlier the cost of living adjustment, which is, again, being projected at 1.5% to 2.5%. Again, that's a formula that's been on the books since, it was under, I think, Nixon, that the COLA program was created years ago, and it has never been touched. Again, a lot of people think Congress votes on COLAs. We don't, okay? It's a formula that's calculated by the Department of Labor. You know, as we're dealing with sort of the budget issues that's there, you know, one idea that's been thrown out there is a thing called chained CPI, chained cost of living index. And basically there's economists who feel, and this is maybe going to strike some of you as kind of almost hilarious, that the COLA formula is too generous, okay? And again, as many of you know, 2 out of the last 4 years, the COLA spit out a 0 increase, okay? But nonetheless, there are economists who think that it's still too generous because they think that, you know, when the Department of Labor looks at the COLA formula and it says, well, you know, the price of steak, you know, went up 3%, you know, from 1 year to the next year. Well, what consumers really do is they actually go buy chicken instead, or you know, cheaper cuts like ground beef or whatever, so that, you know, if you follow supposedly real behavior, and again, I'm just repeating this, that the CPI should be changed, and they call it a chained CPI, which is kind of a nice image because it's chaining, proposing to chain seniors. This affects not just seniors, by the way. If the COLA was changed to this new formula, it would also affect veterans benefits, okay? Because the veterans benefits are calculated using the same COLA formula. And it's been proposed by both sides. I opposed it. I've signed letters against it. There's a resolution Congressman Cicilline from Rhode Island introduced. There's about 100 of us who signed on to it. I would argue, frankly, that if you look at the cost of living formula that's used by the government, again, they use a whole breadbasket of goods and products. So, you know, this iPad is included in the COLA formula. And as many people know, you know, the cost of iPads have been going down because of competition, you know, BlackBerry, cell phones, and all that. But that's not the budget of a senior. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if you were really looking at a COLA that accurately reflected a true budget of somebody who's over age 65, they're not out buying this stuff by and large. You know, they're buying medicine, they're buying fuel, and they're buying food and rent. Okay, I mean, those are, you know, if you looked at the broad cross section of 50 million people who are in Medicare, that's pretty much and so there's actually Congressman DeFazio from Oregon has a different COLA that he's proposed, which would be based on a breadbasket that really actually more accurately reflects, you know, the reality of a senior, as opposed to the formula that the Department of Labor used, which actually would make the COLA would make it more generous rather than less generous. So the change CPI idea is not dead right now. It's still sort of floating around in ether down in Washington. You know, when we go back on September 9th, there's obviously some big decisions the country has to make in terms of keeping the government open. After October 1st, you know, there's talk about a grand bargain, there's talks about mini bargains, there's talks about little extensions, and all I can tell you is, you know, you should watch this like a hawk, because, you know, if you look at the projection of what change CPI would do over time for this gentleman who's, you know, just signing up for Medicare and Social Security, you know, based on your life expectancy, that would be a real hit on your income over time, and that's been projected out. It's math. You know, there's no sort of debate about that. And again, having lived through town hall meetings and senior center visits when it was 0 for 2 consecutive years, you know, that's kind of stuck in my head that anyone who thinks the COLA system is way too generous really has not watched what, you know, it actually has calculated, and even just in recent history.
Hey, Joe, is there, what I was going to say is that the housing, you know, like the rents go up and all that, would the Social Security go up? Because my buddy told me next year we're going to get a raise on Social Security.
Well, you came in a little bit late, but I mentioned to you earlier, the trustees have said it'll be about 1.5% to 2.5%. somewhere in that range. So there is gonna be a COLA next year, it's still not, they haven't calculated it exactly.
I know I came too late, I was
That's,
outside.
looked like you were working, so.
Yeah.